All right, we're on to the sales process. The first part of this is customer communication. Communication with the customer shall include, and then there's a list of these things. But what this basically is how you communicate your capabilities to the customer and how the customer communicates their requirements to you. So basically, this is a rule about whether or not you can accept an order over the phone or whether you have required communication in some other fashion before you accept an order. There's actually a lot in customer communication because it's an important thing. It's how you represent your products to the world. That method can be included in the contract. It can be included in your general terms of sale. Products can be represented directly in sales presentations, can be posted on a website, and can be determined in a dozen other ways. The question is, how do you represent your product to the world, and what are your rules for the customers communicating to you? This is about determination of requirements related to the products and services. So when you're determining your customers' requirements or determining the requirements for products offered to customers, you shall ensure these things here: that the requirements are defined, all the applicable statutory and regulatory requirements are defined, and that you can meet the claims for the products and services you offer. So here's some typical order entry rules. First one is, who's allowed to accept an order, and how big of an order can they accept without reviewing it with someone? Do you have to order a product that's considered real? What are the rules for something getting into your product line? Do you have a catalog, and what are the rules for something being listed in it? Is there a set price list? What are the rules for that? Are you in a service level agreement or long-term supply agreement? What are the rules for that? What are the rules for prioritizing special customers? There could be some kind of allocation situation where some customers get supply and some don't. How are special requirements captured, like DPAS? How is that spread throughout the supply chain? Who decides all of these things, and are any of these things written down, and how are they communicated to the people that are answering the phone? Here's the next one. The organization shall ensure that it has the ability to meet the requirements for the products and services to be offered to the customers. And it says the organization shall conduct a review. And there are rules for this review, whatever that looks like for you. So here's some questions. The first question is, at what moment does committing occur? Does committing occur when you make the sales presentation? Does it occur when you accept the PO? Does it occur when you sign the high-level supply agreement? What rules are there in terms of reviewing this commitment as time goes on prior to providing the product? Second question is the placement of a product in a catalog equal to committing to selling the product? Or is it when you issue the order acknowledgement? Is it when you make the sales presentation? And at the end of the day, what review is done and how is a review documented? A possible audit trail on this is the question of whether you have objective evidence of your validation activities before you put something in a catalog or on your website. There's some more in this. The customer's requirements shall be confirmed by the organization before acceptance when the customer doesn't provide a documented statement of their requirements. That is, you have to get back with them and ask them, are they sure? And at some point at the end of the day, you shall retain documented information as applicable on the results of the review and on any new requirements. So here's another set of questions about legacy products. A lot of products are legacy or long-lived products that may have been in your catalog for years and years. And in that case, you might not be able to come up with all the records that you reviewed the product and reviewed the performance of it. Plus, the statutory and regulatory requirements may have changed since the product was originally introduced. I've seen grandfather clauses in this case, where somebody will say, products introduced prior to date X, whatever that date is, are considered legacy products. A technical committee has reviewed the product requirements and believes they meet the stated requirements, or some weasel words to that effect. Next is changes. The organization shall ensure that relevant documented information is amended and that relevant persons are made aware of the change requirements. That means you have to have a set of rules for this too. So the next question is, what about your rules for order changes? What are your rules for changing quantity or delivery type? What are your rules for changing red instead of blue? Do you have to get a new set of approvals? Do you have to get order cancellation and reissuing? Or can you just change things on the fly? Those rules are up to you to set out and communicate somehow. A lot of the contract review stories start out with the words, remember that time. Like, remember that time we accepted that £1 million order and the customer turned out to be bankrupt? Or how about, remember that time we accepted that order and the operations department decided they couldn't do it? Well, don't do that. Next question is service level agreements versus the order. The question of all of that is who signs off on any of it and who maintains the records. I, the auditor, will look at the service level agreement and see who signed it off, and then I'll also look at some orders and see who reviewed those and signed those off. The last question is, are there special requirements that need to be flowed down or up to a supplier? For example, DPAS, how is that communicated to your purchasing department? And is or isn't your purchasing department in on the order review process? So here's some general comments on this. There's a lot in this. This is so routine, you hope that in many organizations nobody thinks about it too much. There's some congenial person hired to run the order desk and you're good with that. And it's also hard to audit in some cases because a lot of these rules are tribal. A lot of this goes to the heart of who you are as an organization. This is also highly variable depending on the nature of the product and or service. Some of these jobs might be done off-site. That is to say, you might have some kind of corporate sales function that negotiates the high-end contract and you flow it down to the order level when you get to the plant. In that case, how much of it is in the scope? And then there are ongoing questions about authorization to accept an order of one kind or another. So this is pretty typical of what actually happens in a lot of places. There's a general rule that people like orders, and so orders may be accepted if the item is in the system. And by system, we mean something like SAP or Oracle or some MRP system. The rules for something getting into the system is based on permissions and has one foot in product design and maybe in purchasing. The rules for order acceptance can also be programmed into the system by permissions. The order acknowledgments can be automatically generated and the order put into the scheduling system. In these cases, the review happens when the item is placed in the system and the rules are set up. Your congenial order entry people usually are unaware of what this takes. It probably happened before they got there.